welcome you all to our conversation today on portals, how Box is used by organizations in integration with websites and web presentations, both for internal and external consumption. I'm delighted to have an outstanding panel here. Seated to my far right, we have Josh Lipton from Advantix. In the middle, we have Tanya Loh from Yammer. And on the left, we have, today he's Daniel and I'm Dan. Tomorrow we'll swap. I'll be Daniel and he'll be Dan. Daniel and I have had the pleasure of speaking together a number of times, so we've got our patter down pretty effectively. Daniel's from LincWare. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. My genius plan, we've got 25 minutes. I've already wasted 2 of them on my stand-up act, so we've got 23 minutes. My genius plan is to just have these guys give a quick overview of how they're using Box in their organizations. We've talked about it ahead of time to sort of hopefully focus each of the 3 of them on a separate view of how they're doing this so that we don't get too much repetition. And then we'd love to get a little bit of a dialogue going with you guys about how you'd like to be using Box in portal kinds of situations, what questions you have about how these guys are using it. If you're all too boring or too comatose after lunch to come up with any good questions, I'll be forced to do that, but hopefully I won't have to talk and we can have a little bit of an interactive dialogue and learn something from each other. So on that note, Josh, you want to kick us off? Just give us a quick idea of, oh, you want a microphone?
I'm fine talking like this.
Okay, go ahead.
Is everybody able to hear?
I think this'll pick it up.
All right.
No, we're taping it.
I'll
I'll get in deep trouble with the powers that be if we don't use
Make sure we have the
microphones.
mics. All right. Cool.
Tanya. Excellent.
All right. Perfect. Hey, everybody. All right. So, by way of introduction, Advantix helps enterprises manage their telecom lifecycle. We actually have a buzzword finally for our industry, telecom lifecycle management. It took 10 years of our existence for that to develop. But what that boils down to is, telecom's complex, particularly mobility, and so enterprises look for help there. Cost control, management, whole variety of things, help desk, you name it. MDM's a slice of that. Mobile Iron's here. We partner with companies like that as well. When we look at Box, we started with Box maybe 2 or 3 years ago. In the context of this conversation, portals, I'll boil it down to a few major things we do. Most important perspective we would probably bring to this panel is we think we use Box somewhere between 15 to 20 different distinct things going on inside our org, different applications, way we're utilizing it, ranging from API to standard stuff like the website to the mobile apps. But for purposes of portals, one of the key business challenges for us is acquiring client data. When we bring a new client on, they give us many months of billing data, a lot of exchange of information, so you have a lot of choices there, right? So FTP replacement was our first target, and so we actually started with Box with a widget, just the real basic widget. You can pop it on a web page and get billing data, but pretty quickly we ended up writing a complex API integration, complex from the API, probably not the Box API side, but from the multi-step workflow in WordPress actually. Clients come to our website, go through multi-stage workflow, culminating in a Box transaction that gets all this sophisticated data over to us in a way to the user, very seamless. Internally, it's all inside Box. We have 3 major portal integrations with Box, though. So the first would be that billing acquisition side, clients just giving us billing data through this really cool WordPress-oriented approach.
And are those spreadsheets or?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing about the challenge is clients have everything from large PDFs to EDI interchange style files to spreadsheets to their own way they were tracking a series of things. So that was the big challenge, right? Was you're usually dealing with an admin, so it needs to be really lightweight, for them to get the data to us. So while it sounds great, hey, we're going to have an FTP or SFTP process, even in the sophisticated clients, they're terrible at actually being able to execute on that. So that portal was sort of on the new client acquisition side. So when a client comes in, that's how we get the information. What's cool is that sort of starts the workflow through the rest of our org. So data starts in Box, and then all the other things kind of come out of that. So our channel team, for instance, the folks who are out selling our product, they get access to all of their marketing standards through a portal that's actually Salesforce integrated. The Salesforce, the free one, the self-service portal, which if you're a Salesforce user, you have access to this one for free. One of the cool things you can do with that is you have this idea of solutions, which are basically web documents that you can have links to. So we needed to get marketing standards out to 600 channel agents. So our idea there was we'll give them access to the free Salesforce self-service portal. We're going to create a solution in there called Marketing Standards. Our marketing manager's over here, a beautiful redheaded wife. This Marketing Standards document has links to subfiles within Box. So now when we update a logo or change collateral out. Again, it's very simple for our agents to find it. They go through the self-service portal, pull up this solution, got links to box folders, and again, we can update that all on the back end and make it really simple. And then the third side, of course, the third kind of portal would be client maintenance itself. So when we manage telecom for a client, they're sending us, again, HR data, HRIS kind of information that, again, historically would have been relegated to SFTP and complex programming tasks to kind of do that interchange of data. So again, we can use the API for our sophisticated clients to push and pull data back and forth via post, but also for our clients that are maybe have lots of complexity but are not so complex a company, maybe a large construction firm or something like that, they can just go to their upload page, drop the latest HR file in there, and it's all very seamless and simple for us to use. So that's the portal side of Box. We use a ton of different sides of it. So focusing on that, those are our three major areas.
Excellent, Josh. Thank you very much. Tanya, you want to give us an idea of how you guys use Box at Yammer?
Absolutely. So to start, how many of you are familiar with Yammer? Awesome, great. Well, hopefully you all have active, thriving networks. We have a booth outside if you'd like to come learn more about our product, but basically we are a private and secure enterprise social network. We're intended to support real-time collaboration and communication and all sorts of great use cases that are really impacting the way that employees and companies get more work done and stay more connected. So the way that we use Box, and I work in marketing, so pardon me if I use a lot of jargon, but it's mainly in three different ways, and that would be, first of all, our Salesforce integration, the Box Salesforce integration, which has been really helpful for our sales team. Secondly, I wanted to touch on our own Yammer and Box integration, which has also been very helpful for sharing files within our own product. You know, we're big-time dog fooders as well and live in Yammer all day long. And then the last area was just simply in terms of working with our remote mobile teams. We're an active, rapidly growing startup that has new teams popping up all over the world, and so it's been a really effective solution for collaboration around content. So first of all, with Salesforce, I think Josh touched on this briefly, and they have more of an interface, it sounds like. For our sales reps, they've really used it operationally. So the Salesforce integration allows our reps to post files that are tied to accounts so that if you're looking at the account history of a particular contact or prospect, you can easily access those files from the Salesforce interface or within Box itself. So let's say you wanted to refine a sales deck that addressed a certain issue. You could then have that alternate view by popping into your Box folder and just going through and mining all the different relevant customer files that have been put out. As for the Box integration itself, or actually just to pick back up on sales, they also enjoy using that quite a bit because, as you know, attaching massive files to emails and sending those to prospects isn't necessarily the most effective way to communicate and get your email message through. And so with the Box Salesforce integration, they can actually track that activity directly with that link and also expire that particular file so that if there's something sensitive, let's say a contract term or something that's being negotiated, they can easily pull that down when needed, and it's not some document floating out in the ether.
And this is your internal Salesforce,
This is
right?
our internal Salesforce, exactly.
Whereas Josh was using the Salesforce integration to enable his channel, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, great clarification. As far as the second area, which is our Box Yammer integration, so I'm not sure how many of you attended the Power User session earlier today where Senior PM Brandon Savage, I believe it was, showed how there'll be a new feature, a way to post directly to Yammer if you have the Yammer integration. So that we actually use the current version pretty often, which is something that lets you look at a file, go over it in the share area, actually drop down and post a file directly to Yammer, to a specific group or into your general feed just to reach your colleagues if you wanted to update people around that piece of content. So that's been particularly effective because we're fast moving. We need to get everyone collaborating around critical documents to improve our responsiveness. The last area then is just around content collaboration. So, when you have these active mobile teams who are out there, pounding the pavement, trying to get your product into businesses or working with customers every day and really tailoring their pitches, we use Box and share files all the time. We send notifications to each other. It becomes almost like this call to action when you've seen a file posted in there, and especially if you can look at a number of customer-oriented materials around the same topic and just kind of improve and facilitate collaboration. So that's been particularly helpful for our team internally.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. All right, Danielle, see if you can limit yourself to no more than 45 minutes, okay?
Thanks, Dan. Nice to see everyone today. Hello. How many of you had a chance today to sign up for to become a Box Star? Awesome. You used my app. That's called LinkDoc Mobile. And for those of you who haven't signed up yet, well, wait until after John and I are done, then head over and get signed up. So what we create are document automation and electronic form solutions that connect to a variety of systems like Box.net and work on things like the iPad, on laptops, in the cloud. And we do that and we deliver that through a network of global resellers and partners. So we work with people all over the world across a variety of languages and locations. And how many of you, by a show of hands, use or used to use a product like SharePoint, Documentum, LiveLink, OnBase, one of those lovely legacy apps? Okay, that's the world I come from. And we still work with all those other vendors, and yet we choose to use Box. And the reason is we needed a way to build a portal to collaborate with not only our partners and resellers, but also our customers, and do it securely and embed that behind a login and make sure we knew who was doing what. So what we've done with our portal is embedded all the content, whether it's sales, marketing, technical white papers, videos, behind our own login, and then it's just embedded Box folders. So we have three main use cases, and the first I'd say is pretty strong around digital asset management. We work with a lot of people in developing countries who just aren't going to be able to receive a 50 megabyte file through email. So by using Box, we can securely send HD video and other like very large content, whether it's a 50 megabyte PowerPoint file, and do that all around the world. The second primary use case is around this, mobility. It's about putting the content in context wherever our partners and customers are. We want to make it so that you can access our resources from an external standpoint, whether you're at a conference, meeting with a customer, or sitting in front of your laptop. And then, of course, you know, from the dog fooding, and I think that's an awesome word, I'm going to steal that, is we enable people to submit information just like you have all done today using secure, dynamic, electronic forms and content. And really what we do is we help people, we serve as an on-ramp, and then Box really becomes the highway to collaborate and share and access all of that information. So it's, our use case is definitely more externally focused, although we do use it ourselves, but we've dragged a lot of people who were in the legacy world for content management into the cloud just by leading through example and making it the system that we use to interact with them.
And Daniel, can I use your stuff to put a form on a web page and then have the output of that form get dumped into Box?
Well, yes, Dan, you can. Thank you.
And I could also use it, obviously, for gathering data on an iPad or some other mobile device, and again, use Box as the sort of cloud file system on the back end.
Yeah, exactly. And really, like, the use case there is a lot of people are using, like Adobe PDFs or trying to use InfoPath, and those things, like, just like a lot of content sharing, just doesn't scale well outside the firewall. It's really hard to make that available on your website or to, you know, an audience like this without having to go buy licenses for them. And you know, we fit really nicely into that model with Box where, you know, sharing and access should be very simple. And
in addition to all of this, I'm sure you will all agree that Daniel wins the prize for far and away the best headshot that I've ever seen. Okay, so that's the high level. Any thoughts or comments or questions about using Box in portal applications? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, portal is definitely a prevalent term in what we do. I mean, we're providing custom portals to our clients to access. We have self-service kind of portals. I think portal as a term is certainly there. I think it's just sort of just like anything when you play sort of buzzword bingo. It's just not the hot term right now, you know, mobile and all these other things, tablets. But the reality is just, again, the main thing is it's windows into information, right? So, and ways to exchange that data. So, you know, you're talking about forms, you know, Dan, are you Dan or Daniel right now?
Today, I'm Daniel.
Daniel, okay.
Okay.
So when you talk about forms, you know, our data acquisition stages, you know, when we're getting that billing data, there's a forms element. The client's telling us who they are, right? What's their name? That turns into a lead in our system that flows through. So there's kind of form-based data, but then there's also just transactional data that has to move back and forth. So portal's the right term probably to describe that. Or wizards used to be the really old term for that sort of stuff too. But at the end of the day, yeah, you need sort of windows into this information. Box does that really elegantly, in a way that honestly starts to kind of challenge even us as deep Salesforce users to evaluate kind of where we make our choices. You guys are probably challenged with this too. It's definitely not document folders in Salesforce, but when you start looking at content and libraries in Salesforce versus, everybody brings up SharePoint as the competitor, but there are also within these things kind of many different modalities, many different ways to address these same challenges. And so we've just found Box is really elegant here because it can both work well within these tools that we live in all the time, but it can go outside and be very adapted nice and easily. Whereas take content as an example, and we love Salesforce. You can't really get outside Salesforce to content in an efficient way. Whereas Box, you've got it right where you need it. So that's powerful.
Another question for these guys?
In terms of e-forms, what about digital signatures and things like that, Daniel?
Great question. So the question is, when you're dealing with content that has to come in and then maybe you're going to present it in a portal, how do you deal with issues around like signatures and authentication? And the answer is it depends. It really depends on your locality. In the United States and Canada, for example, we have some really strong laws around electronic signatures and digital signatures. And you already know this because when you buy something online or file your taxes, you don't have to print out a signature page. And you can use tools like DocuSign, as an example, who's exhibiting here, to do that where you're capturing the data, you know who signed it, when they signed it, and then you secure that. And me personally, I feel very confident in the security model that we've set up with Box so that not only we capture the signature and encrypt it, but I know that once I have it, I have a pretty good audit trail of who's accessed it, what they're doing, and I can comfortably look at that life cycle and see what's happened to that document, not only once it's been signed, but submitted and then approved. So signatures are just another step on the process. A lot of people get really hung up on them, but as consumers, we've moved way past that.
Obviously, one of the nice things about OpenBox is it enables actions like e-signing a document to occur on the stuff once it's in Box. So it can be captured through a portal or through an interface with NetSuite or Salesforce or something like that, and then get electronically signed through the OpenBox Action API. Other questions?
How do you handle users? So for your portals, I guess some of them maybe you're sharing one Box user. Are other ones creating Box users on demand and then asking you to basically give you access to and your customers access to specific data within Box?
So I'll touch on a couple different ways we're handling users. So within our use case of Salesforce, for instance, inside our org, similar to you, Tanya, we've got the Salesforce App Exchange app version of Box, and so those, in order to really run that properly, those need to be named users at our company touching that data, right? So that's, and then from a good stewardship standpoint, it would almost feel a little bit wrong of us. I know we could do this. You could definitely write a beautiful API thing with minimal licenses incurred, right? Because the API is so broad, you could get really aggressive with this. From a stewardship standpoint, we would feel a little weird about really leveraging the heck out of the API if we also were not using enterprise licenses. That's just sort of how we think about our company. But in terms of the external users, I'll give you that web acquisition thing I was talking about. That's purely anonymous traffic. That's not a named user license to send us that data. When we share links externally, we typically share anonymous links rather than inviting collaborators to our folders, again, for simplicity. One use case that I didn't touch on that I want to maybe hear if you do this, Tanya, is we use marketing automation. Now, a lot of folks have started to hear and understand what that is, but one of the key concepts in marketing automation is to track your users, your prospects' behavior. When you send an email out with an email attachment, there's no marketing automation tool that can track download of an email attachment from the email itself. So we've trained our reps to rethink how they think about emails and attachments. Now they create a box link, and when they send that file via traditional old school email, Outlook or whatever, we're pretty cloudy as a company, but when we send an old school email, we just use a box link. And our marketing automation tool rewrites that URL. It's really cool. Rewrites it into the little marketing automation tool magic URL that makes it trackable, but it's still going back to Box, still secure, still all of that. So again, it would have been tempting for us to use the marketing automation platform's file storage system. Why would we need that? We've got Box. And so again, that's one of the cool things here is all these things tend to play fairly nice with each other. So Once you've sort of made a philosophical decision about, okay, what's my platform for data, then you can start to ripple it into this other stuff.
Right. So to answer your question, yes, that's absolutely what we do as well for our sales team. And I neglected to mention that, prior to Box, we were using Salesforce content, which we just found to be very kludgy and just not the most intuitive or practical interface for our team, because you just had people who were sort of internally downloading, and it was just not something that was really working for our team. And so with the Box Salesforce integration, we're able to do that. We're able to give our reps that ability to not have to live in CRM all the time. They can quickly send the link. It's automated. It's all tracked as part of the account history. And that just saves a lot of time, I think, for our sales reps, because they're just so busy actively, trying to sow the field. So
And
that's been a very helpful.
Tanya, for the sort of intranet application of Yammer with the Box integration, do those users, relate somehow?
So at this time, the way that our Box Yammer integration is working, that's more for internal collaboration. It kind of goes along that theme, because Yammer is meant for internal collaboration primarily. The external networks, I think there's potential to really explore that, and I can't wait till we get there as a growing company. But I think for the interim, it's been especially effective because you can basically draw that social open conversation back to files that are in Box, and build that social layer around sort of your standard document management repositories and other enterprise application tools, the whole alphabet soup or enterprise stack that Aaron was talking about earlier today.
That's great. And I think, just from a philosophical point of view, we're trying to build a new kind of enterprise software company. And part of that is we want to make our customers happy. Like, this is our goal in life, right? It's not to get you to buy more licenses, it's to get you to renew and continue to be happy customers and members of the Box ecosystem. And part of the way we do that is we try very hard not to nickel and dime our customers. So we don't charge for our mobile interfaces separately. We don't charge for anything separately if we can possibly avoid it. And if you're users of Box and it's part of the way you run your business, and you want to use it for an externally facing portal and to gather data from a bunch of prospects or a bunch of customers, we don't want to charge you for all those seats. We want you to use it in that kind of external portal application. So, I appreciate the question about sort of user management, but that's a situation where we're fine with you using sort of one Box account that's an internal user's account, and then dumping a bunch of stuff through a widget on a portal or something like that into that account. We're not out to try to charge you for all those external users who are really just using Box as a way to get you content that they need to transmit to you.
What you'll find is your teams drive you deeper into Box than your original intentions tend to be. So again, there's kind of brilliance in the model. I love logging into my admin panel. Justin Roberts knows about this. My sales contact over at Box. Log into the admin panel. You're at X licenses over your paid for licenses, because we discover we've got more users who have encountered it, shared a file, and kind of indirectly wormed their way into Box, which again just demonstrates that it's viral in the right sense, right? But it's delivering value consistently. A use case that even happened today for me on Box, we had a proposal that needed to go out to a client. I'm on the road, need to review it. Sales rep just emailed me the link, opened the file. All of that resides within Salesforce too, but the fact that with one click through, I'm not authenticating, I'm not doing anything fancy, it's on my, whatever, this is an iPad. I'm looking at and reviewing that. That's really powerful that you can do that so seamlessly. So again, it's testament to the value of it. So
that's a great closing thought, Josh. I want to thank the three of you very much for participating today. I want to thank all of you for being here and for participating in our first ever BoxWorks. I guarantee you it will not be our last ever BoxWorks, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.